Hello friends, I hope that you're having a lovely day. Welcome to another video here at Hila at home, and it's a weekend vlog with just some snippets of life at home. One of the first things I like to do in the morning during spring is I always look forward to just going out and look at what's going on with the plants and with the seedlings that are being very slowly planted out into where they're supposed to go. I'm quite nervous about slug and snail damage, which is another reason why I'm constantly checking on them. But on this particular day, we didn't have that much sun. It was a Friday and the grass had just been cut the previous day. We have to wait for at least 2 days without any rain before we can cut the grass, because we can't cut it when it's wet, and it had started to look very quite scruffy, and I do like a neat lawn. I have this Aquilegia plant that I just really love. It's yellow and I think it's called gold chrysanth. I'll link it in the description box down below, but it's a really beautiful one and it's one of my favorite. And I also love going to look at the alliums because they seem to be getting more purple each day, if that's possible, but the vibrancy of their color just seems to deepen with each day, and it's been really lovely to have them, because in the past, before I planted them, there would be a gap between the spring bulbs, so the daffodils and the tulips, and then there'd really be nothing going on in my garden until the summer flowering plants would come in towards halfway through June and towards the end of July. So I've been consciously trying to plant things in the garden so that there's something interesting throughout the year, and then during the 5 to 6 months that we do have some sun and a growing season, I've been working hard at trying to ensure that there is something with color in the garden throughout those months. It hasn't been easy, but it's a lot of fun. I think that's the joy of gardening. And over in the vegetable plot, the onions and garlic and shallots had started bolting, and this is when they send out a flower stalk in order to make seeds, because they think they are in danger of dying because they haven't had enough water. And so this is with just about 2 days of no rain, so we've been busy removing the flower stalks so that they could direct their energy towards the bulbs. And we were very pleasantly surprised to see that our asparagus plant had survived. When we moved our asparagus bed, we only managed to keep 2 of them. Only 2 seemed to have survived, and so currently we're nursing just 1 asparagus spear, which is a lot of fun. And the clematis is doing really well. I love these joyful clematis. But the clematis needs to be trained onto the trellis. It keeps on growing towards where the sun is. Really, I planted it on the wrong side of the trellis. I should have planted it on the other side, and then it would climb over very easily. But as it stands, I have to constantly tie it back. This is my favorite ground cover. I need to find out what the name is of that one, but it's a really lovely lime green that makes the little pinks pop. It's a perennial because it dies away and then it comes back. So I think it will be worth finding out what it's called. I have a hellebore here which needs to be moved because it's just become a bit of a beast in this area. And that's some hardy geranium, which is magenta. The rose, the Madame Alfred Carrier rose, is beginning to really bloom, and it is a repeat flowering shrub, so I'm very happy that it started blooming this early. My dahlias have been completely eaten up by slugs and snails, so I need to probably get some more or try and recuperate the ones that have been chewed up. So that's going to be a lot of fun, something to watch out for. The hardy geraniums are in flower and they're ever so pretty. And these are so easy to look after. It's just the easiest, as well as the aquilegias. Aquilegias are also very easy because they just seed themselves and then they just grow where you least expect them. This is an area that I never thought any plants could grow because it's got it had a lot of old rubble, but the aquilegias grew there. So highly recommend aquilegias. They're also known as columbines, commonly here in England. And my front door display is still holding up well with the hosta and the white clematis. One of the things we really like to do when the evenings are lighter is to play badminton. So we picked up some badminton rackets at an auction and we only got them for £2, which is really awesome. And I didn't quite expect the children to get into badminton as they did. And so every year that's something that we look forward to doing, that is being able to play badminton, particularly after school. In winter, because the days are shorter, we can't actually do that, and the grass tends to be quite soggy. So whenever we do get an opportunity to play out, we're always out there playing, and it's always a nice way for us to cap the evening. So sometimes we'll be playing right up until about 9 o'clock, and it's been very satisfying to watch the children's skill improve over the years with playing badminton. They're now at the point where they can do a decent volley, and they're constantly losing the shuttlecock in the trees, and we have to get up to all sorts of shenanigans in order to retrieve them, but it's a lot of fun. Saturday morning kicked off with making a batch of Madeline butter. We really love French Madelines in the house. Whenever we've traveled over to Europe, we've always bought Madelines over there. And so we decided to start learning how to make them ourselves, since we can't always be able to hop across the channel, go to France, Costco, and buy the Madelines. And it's been quite successful actually. And so this is the recipe that I use. So the first thing is we'll melt the butter. I'll link the recipe in the description box down below. So we melt the butter and give it time to cool, because actually the butter goes in last. And basically going to cream the sugar with the eggs, and I'm adding copious amounts of vanilla here. In the past we've made them using lemon zest and lemon juice, but I didn't have any fresh lemons to use, so we just use vanilla for this. I've doubled up the mixture here, so normally it would be 100 grams of butter and 100 grams of flour and 2 eggs, but I wanted to have a double batch on the go because these things are so Moorish and everybody loves them so much. And the other thing that I'm also doing is I'm preparing the flour now rather than sifting it just before it's required. I basically like to do cooking using the mise en place method, where you prepare all of your ingredients and then you go off and cook. So you have to whisk the eggs and the sugar until they're very, very creamy. And so you'll go very, very light. By hand, this takes a really long time. And if you use a hand whisk, it's about 8 to 10 minutes. But if I use the big machine here, it's ready in about 5 to 6 minutes, which is what I do. And during those 5 to 6 minutes, I can do other stuff in the kitchen. So as you can see there, the butter is really nice and creamy. and it's very airy, so it's incorporated a lot of air, and we want to try and keep as much of that air as possible. So the flour, when it goes in, just folding it in. The last thing to add will be the melted butter, and that will be folded in as well. I will then pour it into a measuring jug that's covered over with a cling film and put it into the fridge to chill. Now, in all the experiments that we've done so far, letting the butter chill overnight has produced the best results, but minimum of 4 hours also does quite well. And on this day, it was just going to be the 4 hours because we were making them for my sister and my nieces and nephews who were coming to have dinner with us. Busy in the kitchen on a Saturday. What you making?
Fruit salad.
Fruit salad.
Learned these skills from food tech.
I can't wait to have the fruit salad. And then what have we got going on here?
Madelines.
Madelines. What you doing?
Greasing the pan with melted butter, just so that the Madelines won't stick.
And that's the Madeline butter.
Looks like custard. Right, I'll leave you with it then. The sun's come out. The grass was mowed yesterday. Everything is quite nice and sunny. I just received 2 of my favorite magazines today. Gardens Illustrated, which has got some really gorgeous ideas for gardening, but I really liked their section on, look at this garden. This is the garden I would love to have. But this is Sissinghurst Garden, which is maintained by over 20 gardeners. So, as my daughter reminded me, I have to not compare myself to others. Okay, so that's the gardening one. It's quite lovely. And then I've got my sewing fix, which I get every month with Berta. And I have to decide what I'm going to sew from this issue. And so far, what was it that I was liking? I quite like the look of this jacket here, but we'll see. And then the Farm Foods catalog. So I'll cut out the coupons so that I can save when I buy some things from Farm Foods. Coming back to the Madelines after they've chilled in the fridge for at least about 4 hours, in my opinion, they just go into the oven for just under 8 minutes at 200 degrees fan assisted, and they're so quick to come out. So these ones were a little bit thinner than normal, but I love these Le Creuset Madeline tins that we recently bought so that we're able to do more batches, because there's non-stick, and as you can see, the Madelines will just come out really nicely. So that was really lovely. And the plan was that we were going to be having a barbecue in the evening when we were hosting family over for a meal, and the Madelines would be the little snacks that would be had. And there was a bit of a gap between the baking and getting ready for the meal, so we got to doing a little bit more stuff in the garden. And in order to keep the bugs from around our eating place, we start burning citronella candles maybe about half an hour before we expect to be sitting around for our fresco dining. So it does come with the perils of bees, wasps, and midges, and all that sort of thing. But in the meantime, we have two varieties of tomatoes that we'll be growing this year. One is a beefsteak because my husband and the boys, they love having a tomato on the burgers, and hamburgers, they come into the menu rotation in spring and in summer during the warmer months. So we're growing our own. So we're growing them on the patio here rather than in the vegetable garden because they need maximum sun, and our patio here is the sun trap, and so it does really, really well when we grow tomatoes right up against that very warm wall, and it gets maximum amount of sun, which means that the tomatoes are the tastiest. We've grown tomatoes before on the vegetable garden side, but they just never seem to get that lovely sweetness that they get when they're grown here on the patio. So my son there has cut the holes out of the grow bag, which I find is the easiest way to grow tomatoes if you're growing them on the patio. And he's clipping off the bottom leaves, and that's to allow the plant to send in more energy towards encouraging little side shoots and having more of a bushy habit rather than just the trailing vine that you can get with tomatoes. And these plants are just going to get humongous, and we just have to make sure that they'll be fed. So my son is going to be in charge of looking after the tomatoes. That's something that he really wanted to grow. He loves growing things, which is very nice. I think out of all of them, he's the one that's most invested in growing vegetables. The other ones are more interested in flowers or unique varieties of things, but the vegetables, he's on it. And so that's them set up, ready to go. We were very lucky with the weather on Saturday, and we were able to have a lovely meal with family and jokes and laughing, and it was a very good day.
It's gloriously hot today, and I actually have to get the head out. It's really quite nice. I still have a lot of planting out to do in the garden, so all of those need to be planted out, but it's too hot for me to actually put anything out right now. So I'm just going to enjoy the sun for a little bit on the deck chair, and then I will get back to it. So for dinner tonight, we were just doing some simple leftovers because yesterday we had my sister come over with her family, and we kind of had a bit of a feast. So we're having the leftovers, which makes it quite nice. When the weather is like this, the last thing you want is to be cooking. I have an airplane passing by. I'm not sure how the sound is going to be trying to record it outside like this, but I had a list of things that I wanted to do today after I got back from church, but the weather is just so good. It didn't even take me long to decide and realize that I have to enjoy it whilst I can, because this is England and the vagaries of the weather mean that we don't necessarily know when we're going to get any nice days like this that always feel
like we're on the Adriatic coastline because the sky is all nice and blue and the sun is just out and I can get some vitamin D. And yeah, it just feels good. And I know that some of the things are going to fall behind a little bit, but you know what? Just to soak in the moment, the weather, and today I don't have to do a school run or anything that requires me to keep an eye on the time. I can just relax. And there's honestly a part of me that's thinking, what is going on here? So it's pretty nice. And it's also been quite nice that my allergies are now under control. So about 2 weeks ago, my allergies really came in a really in a bad way, and I think personally it's because I started eating a lot more carbohydrates. So generally I tend to be low carb, high fat, high protein, and I found out that I was losing weight and I didn't want that, so I reintroduced carbs and I stopped intermittent fasting. But I think that that caused a lot more inflammation because I haven't had my allergies that bad. I They've never actually been that bad. So what I did was I just basically cut out all of the carbs and basically got all of the sugar right down to zero. And that seems to have made a difference. I can actually breathe and be outside and I'm no longer wheezy. So that's been awesome. So I've just gone back to having a lot more high protein food, which has really, really helped. And for me, I'm learning that what I eat does impact a lot on my actual health. And yeah, so that's been my story so far with the allergies, but just being able to sit out here and enjoy the sun. It's a high pollen count day. There's lots of cut grass, but I'm okay. I think that's really awesome, and I haven't had to start taking the antihistamines yet because I normally take those later on in the season. And I also got some honeycomb honey. My neighbor advised me that this is something that you could try to help with the allergies, to reduce your reaction to them. So I have that, and I'm just sort of like taking tiny little doses of it, and it's supposed to work over a long period of time. But that's pretty awesome. So that's where I've been at with my allergies, and I didn't like that I wasn't at my optimal self, but now I'm back to being my optimal self, and it's quite nice to be able to breathe properly and to be able to do stuff without wheezing and coughing and all that stuff. But really beautiful, really beautiful weather, and everybody just seems so much nicer in the sun here in England. I think everybody is generally quite polite in England, I think, but when the sun comes out, just everybody just seems to be full of extra goodness and extra happiness. So yeah, anyway, I hope that the sun will keep on shining.
On hot days like this Sunday, I like to make myself a ice cream, which is very keto friendly. So it's very low carb friendly. It doesn't actually have any sugar. It uses xylitol as the sweetener. And I'll use my frozen raspberries. So I just grabbed a handful of that. There's no specific measurements. I think if you like it fruitier, you add more of the fruit. If you like it creamier, you add more of the cream cheese. So I use a full fat cream cheese. Add the xylitol to taste there, and for me it's just about 2 teaspoons. And then I'll use my hand blender to just blitz it together. You can also do this in like those milkshake makers, and then that's it. It's a lovely frozen yogurt. It's very, very tasty, and it satisfies the sweet tooth that I still have, even though now I can't be eating sugar. And so that's my little recipe, my very quick one that I make
during hot days, and it's nice. It's very satisfying. So coming back to the garden, there was a lot more planting out being done by everybody. So we had flowers being planted out. I think that those are asters being planted out over there. It had become slightly cooler, so this was a bit in the later evening, around 5 o'clock, I would say. So everybody just got involved and just got on with it. We had sowed out some sweet pea, some mange 2, the French pea, and some dwarf French beans, but they just seemed to have disappeared. Either they sprouted and they were completely obliterated by the slugs and snails because we forgot to put any slug repellent, or something went very wrong. So anyway, 2 weeks later, we've had to plant them out, sow them out again. So that's one of the things that's happening on one of the beds. And on the other bed, I'm planting out some leeks, courgettes, and butternut squash, and some cucumbers. So we're very optimistic that this year is going to be a really good year. And this time round, we did remember to put on the slug pellets to repel the pests that are very good at completely obliterating our vegetables. They seem to enjoy vegetables as much as we do. We still have some onions and garlic that are growing from last year, which we're hoping we'll be able to harvest in another couple of weeks or so. I have to be very diligent with making sure they stay watered because the onions and the garlic were already beginning to bolt. And in the past, I've found that you can stave off the bolting by, breaking off the flower stalk and just making sure that they never go dry and give them a chance to bulb out in order for the bulbs to really become thick and fat. And after that, we'll probably do some broad beans or runner beans because they are nitrogen fixing plants and they help to keep the soil in the raised beds nice and healthy, and so that we can continually go along with the crop rotation, which would mean that things can still continue to grow nicely. So that's the bed with the dwarf French beans and the mange 2, but we're having 2.0, version 2.0. So hopefully that will work out well. Dinner ended up being some leftovers made into some form of a carbonara. We all took a break from the garden to quickly eat outside before we got back at it again, and that's the joy of having these longer, lighter days. Thank you so much for coming to visit and hanging out with us this weekend. And until I see you next time, I wish you blue skies, health, and happiness. Bye.